Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging headfirst into just an incredible collection of insights and strategies.
Yeah, these aren't just, abstract ideas.
Not at all. They're battle-tested tactics, sourced from some really fascinating, high-performing people, billionaires, world-class athletes, creative geniuses, even combat leaders.
Right, the kind of people operating at the absolute edge.
Exactly. So imagine having like a personal toolkit filled with their best stuff, their most potent nuggets of knowledge right there for you.
That's a great way to put it.
Well, that's our mission today. We want to extract the most useful wisdom from Tools of Titans to help you navigate, well, everything. Daily life, high-stakes situations, you name it.
Giving you shortcuts,
A
basically.
shortcut to being well-informed, yeah.
Yeah.
Packed with surprising facts, practical takeaways you can actually use right away.
And what's really compelling about this source material is that it's way more than just a book of quotes or cool stories.
Definitely more.
The author frames it deliberately as a toolkit, something designed to actually change your life. And he stresses that everything in there has been, vetted, explored, and applied in the real world.
That's the key part, isn't it? The application.
Totally.
Yeah.
We're talking lessons used in high-stakes negotiations, tough environments, high-risk environments, big business deals.
Generating millions, saving years of effort.
Exactly. Saving years of wasted effort and frustration. This isn't just theory. It's stuff that works under pressure.
Which really makes you think.
It does. It begs the question. If these strategies work in those extreme situations, how can we use them? How can we leverage them for our own challenges, big or small?
Absolutely. So this deep dive, it's all about pulling out those actionable insights, making them accessible for your life.
Okay.
We've got a lot to unpack, so let's get started.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we kick things off with a really powerful mental exercise. A provocation, almost. It's designed to just shatter your ideas about what's possible.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
The author hits us with this question. If you have a 10-year plan of how to get somewhere, some big goal,
Right.
you should ask, why can't you do this in 6 months?
Whoa. Okay, 6 months instead of 10 years. That sounds...
Absurd, right? That's the immediate reaction. Impossible. How could you possibly compress a decade into half a year?
Yeah, my brain's already saying no way.
But that's the point. The core idea isn't literal magic. It's not about somehow instantly achieving those goals.
So what is it about then?
The author says the idea is to productively break your mind.
Break your mind.
Yeah, like taking a mental hammer to those invisible walls, those self-imposed limits we all have, the ones that constrain our ambition without us even realizing it.
Ah, okay. So it's a thought experiment.
Exactly. Think about a student planning 4 years for a degree, asking why not 18 months, forces them to think differently. Accelerated programs, summer courses, maybe even totally different ways to get credentials they hadn't considered.
Or like an entrepreneur aiming for profit in 5 years.
Right. Ask them, why not 6 months? And suddenly they might explore aggressive testing, rapid iteration, maybe even funding options they dismissed before.
It forces you outside the standard playbook.
Precisely. It's about shedding those artificial constraints, like a snake shedding its skin, realizing you actually have the power to renegotiate your reality.
Renegotiate reality. I like that.
It shows how often we just default to the normal systems, the social rules we put on ourselves. And those rules, while comfortable, they just don't work for extraordinary breakthroughs.
That framing really does force you to challenge those deep assumptions. Is a powerful call to look hard at the social rules, the standard frameworks we just kind of absorb without thinking.
Yeah, the ones we don't even question.
And maybe those are the very things limiting what we think we can do. The prompt isn't literal, like you said, but it's a cognitive disruptor. Gets you thinking differently.
Totally.
It really highlights how the biggest breakthroughs often come from questioning the very basics of what we believe is possible, pushing past what just feels normal.
Like the early days of personal computers.
Exactly. The normal was mainframes. But some people asked, why can't this power be on a desk? That question broke the mold. It makes you wonder, have you ever really looked at the unspoken rules guiding your biggest goals? The ones you just assumed couldn't be changed. It's a really vital exercise.
Yeah, it is. And tied right into breaking those constraints is facing your fears, like head on.
Okay, fear. That's a big one.
This is where the author talks about this brilliant fear-setting exercise. It's a proactive way to define your anxieties, maybe even disarm them.
Fear setting, not goal setting.
Right. Instead of just setting goals, you proactively define your fears. You ask, okay, what is really the worst that could happen if I did this thing I'm considering? Or maybe, what if I stop doing something?
On that end.
And then you ask, so what? How could I undo any damage? It forces you to really look that fear in the eye. And often you realize it's mostly just a shadow.
Make it less abstract, more concrete.
Exactly. The author used this himself to step back from angel investing for 6 to 12 months. He went through the worst case scenarios, losing money, hurting his reputation.
Big fears for an investor.
Totally. But he realized they didn't truly matter in the grand scheme, and importantly, most of it could be undone. That pivot, that deliberate startup vacation he took to focus on health,
Yeah.
that directly led to the famous sumo story in the 4-Hour Workweek. It shows how breaking free from that fear can open up totally unexpected paths.
Wow. So defining the fear actually enabled a positive outcome.
Right. It reveals this huge psychological barrier we all face.
Yeah.
The quote is, most people will choose unhappiness over uncertainty.
Unhappiness over uncertainty, that rings true.
That uncertainty, the chance of failure, even just the unknown, it creates these very scary noises in the shadows that often just paralyze us, stop us from doing anything.
It's incredible how often we let that fear of failure, or even just, the fear of not knowing what will happen, dictate our inaction.
Yeah, it's inaction driven by fear.
And the source talks about this idea, calls it the power of pessimism, defining the nightmare.
Defining the nightmare sounds intense.
It is, but the idea is, by clearly outlining the absolute worst thing that could happen, by shining a bright light on those scary noises in the shadows, they often shrink. They become less daunting.
Makes sense. You see it for what it is.
Exactly. And that clarity makes the path forward clearer. It's a crucial step towards actually doing something because, as the source says, there is no happiness without action.
No happiness without action. Powerful.
It's about taking control of your perceived risks instead of letting them control you. Think about public speaking, a common fear, right?
Definitely.
The nightmare might be, forgetting your lines, sweating like crazy, people laughing.
Yeah, all those things.
But if you run through them, okay, I'll have notes. Sweating, everyone gets nervous, someone laughs, that's on them, not me. Suddenly the monster seems smaller, and just doing it feels more achievable.
Yeah, you demystify it. Okay, so speaking of action, another big part of this mindset shift is embracing who you actually are, not who you think you should be.
Authenticity.
Right. There's a really strong emphasis in the sources on being your unapologetically weird self.
Unapologetically weird, I like that.
Derek Sivers, who the author calls this amazing philosopher king programmer, has this great take on it. He says, weirdness is why we adore our friends. What sets us apart gets us hired.
Huh. So weirdness is an asset.
Yeah. He even suggests being weird may even find you the ultimate happiness. It's not about being eccentric just 'cause. It's about recognizing and leaning into your unique quirks, your authentic voice, not trying to fit into some bland, generic box.
Stop trying to be normal.
Exactly. And this connects beautifully with Kevin Rose's insight on the power of narrative. He says, the narrative isn't done to you. The narrative is something that you choose.
You choose your story.
Right. If a narrative isn't working for you, if it feels limiting or just wrong, you can choose a different one. That choice leads to powerful self-redefinition. You get to decide who you are.
That really brings together the ideas of authenticity and crafting your own story. It suggests that embracing your unique stuff, your weirdness, isn't just about self-acceptance.
It's strategic.
Yeah, it's a strategic advantage, especially now when everything feels kind of homogenous. When you lean into what makes you different, you create a distinct identity. You stand out.
In the job market and relationships.
Everywhere. It lets you shape a narrative that actually empowers you, instead of being stuck in one based on what other people expect or your own limiting beliefs.
So it's proactive. You're the architect.
Exactly. You move from being a passive character in your story to the active writer, leveraging what makes you unique as a real strength, like building a strong personal brand, really.
Okay. And maybe the most fundamental shift, the thing underneath all of this, is the call to love yourself.
Ah, the big one.
As comedian Mike Birbiglia puts it pretty bluntly, you've got to love yourself before you can love others. Without it, nothing productive is going to happen.
Sounds simple, almost cliche.
It does, but it's so foundational. Think about it. If you're constantly fighting yourself, battling low self-esteem, paralyzed by perfectionism, always criticizing your own efforts.
Like the source says, it can be paralyzing, lead to procrastination.
Exactly. Nothing gets done. Loving yourself isn't about ego. It's about building the stable inner base, acceptance, self-compassion.
The foundation for everything else.
Right. From that place, all productive action, all real growth, all good relationships can actually flow.
Right.
Without that inner peace, every single thing you try to do becomes this uphill battle against yourself.
That's so true. That self-acceptance, it really is the bedrock. If you don't have it, you're always trying to fill that hole with external stuff, validation.
Which never works long term.
Never. And the practical impact of self-love on just getting things done, on well-being, it's huge. When you genuinely value yourself, you're more likely to set healthy boundaries, right?
Protect your time and energy.
Prioritize your well-being. Bounce back from setbacks with more resilience. You approach challenges from a place of strength, of worthiness, not from fear or this desperate need to prove something.
Changes the whole dynamic.
It really does. It creates this powerful internal engine for productive action. Stops that quiet self-sabotage that shows up as procrastination or burnout. You shift focus from proving your worth to just pursuing what actually matters to you.
Okay, so once that inner foundation feels a bit more solid and our mindset is geared up for expansion, what about the practical stuff, the tangible daily things that help build momentum?
The rituals, the habits.
Exactly. Let's talk daily rituals. The author found incredible grounding, real momentum in something surprisingly simple: making his bed every day.
Making his bed. Okay, sounds basic.
It sounds trivial, right? Like something your mom yelled at you about. But the wisdom behind it comes from Naval Admiral William McRaven. He gave this famous speech.
Oh, yeah, the commencement speech.
That's the one. He said, "If you want to change the world, start by making your bed." Why? If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task and another and another.
So it's about momentum, that first small win.
Exactly. It's building this tiny, consistent win, a domino effect. It generates positive momentum for the whole day, makes you feel more in control, more accomplished right from the start.
I can see that. Starting the day with order.
And then, kind of on the flip side of recognizing accomplishment, there's this counterintuitive tool for appreciating the small wins. It's called the jar of awesome.
The jar of awesome. Tell me more.
It's literally a physical jar. You jot down and collect all the small victories, compliments you receive, moments of gratitude, anything positive that happens.
You write them down and put them in the jar.
Yep. And the insight here is really profound. If you don't regularly appreciate the small wins, you will never appreciate the big wins.
Why is that?
Because they'll all fall through your fingers like sand as you obsess on the next week, the next to-do, the next thing to fix. You achieve something big, but you're already focused on the next goal.
So you never actually feel successful, like a Pyrrhic victory, the source calls it.
Exactly. You're constantly chasing, never savoring. The jar of awesome is an antidote to that human tendency to always look forward, always strive, often forgetting to appreciate right now.
It's remarkable how those small, consistent actions can have such big psychological payoffs. The Admiral's quote about the bed, it's a micro-habit building momentum, right? Creating that ripple effect.
It shows self-efficacy, belief in yourself.
Right. And the jar of awesome directly tackles that Pyrrhic victory feeling, that constant chase without appreciation. It's a tangible reminder that the small things are the big things.
And that small positive reinforcement matters.
Absolutely. It's crucial for long-term motivation and just, feeling good. It challenges that idea that only huge achievements are worth celebrating.
Okay, another critical daily practice highlighted is journaling, specifically morning pages.
Morning pages, I've heard of those. From Julia Cameron, right?
Yeah, though others use the concept too, and the purpose isn't necessarily to solve all your problems then and there.
So what is the purpose?
It's described as a way to cage your monkey mind on paper so you can get on with your day.
Cage the monkey mind. I like that visual.
It's about getting those nagging, looping thoughts out of your head, the ones that otherwise bounce around all day like a bullet ricocheting inside your skull.
Just getting them down on paper frees up space.
Frees up mental bandwidth, exactly. And this pairs really well with another idea, the overnight task.
Overnight.
It's shared wisdom from people like Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn, and even Thomas Edison. Edison famously said, "Never go to sleep without a request to your subconscious."
Give your subconscious homework.
Basically, you jot down problems or questions before bed, you let your mind work on them passively while you sleep, and often you wake up with surprising clarity, maybe even solutions.
Like outsourcing your thinking to your sleeping brain. That's cool.
It really is.
Both of these practices, journaling and the overnight task, they seem to be about optimizing your cognitive load, managing your mental resources better.
Yeah, clearing the clutter.
Journaling is like mental decluttering, right? It frees up bandwidth for focus or creativity, bringing conscious order to that often chaotic stream of thoughts.
Makes sense.
And the overnight task takes it further. It deliberately harnesses the subconscious, turns sleep into this, well, surprisingly productive problem-solving time.
Making sleep work for you.
Yeah. It encourages you to think about how you manage your inner dialogue, how you use your mental resources beyond just active, conscious effort, creating a mental space for clarity and subtle innovation. Your brain's always working, right? Even when you're not thinking.
True. So to actually make space for these kinds of practices, you need what the sources call deloading phases.
Deloading, like in weightlifting.
Similar concept, but for your mind and schedule. Intentionally carving out empty space.
So it's not just taking a break when you're fried.
No, it's proactive. A deliberate strategy for creativity, for problem solving. The methods mentioned include things like daily blocks, maybe 8 to 9 a.m. just for journaling, tea, quiet time.
Setting aside dedicated time.
Or weekly creative blocks, like Wednesdays 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. are purely for deep work, writing, no distractions. And then there's the really freeing one, screen-free Saturdays.
Now, screen-free Saturdays, that's a commitment.
It is. Laptops off, phone only for maps or emergencies. The whole purpose of these deloading phases is to return to what the author calls the pregnant void of infinite possibilities.
The pregnant void.
He says the big ideas come from these periods. It's the silence between the notes that makes the music. It's in those moments of quiet, of not doing, of letting your mind wander without constant input that the breakthroughs happen.
It's so counterintuitive, isn't it? The idea that slowing down, creating empty space, actually boosts productivity and creativity.
Goes against the hustle culture.
Totally. That modern tendency to equate being busy with being important. Huge trap. Often leads to what the source calls lazy thinking and indiscriminate action.
Busy work instead of important work.
Right. It's often used as a guise for avoiding the few critically important but uncomfortable actions. The source is clear. Real breakthroughs often need that deliberate lack of constant input, a willingness to step away from the reactive whack-a-mole game.
Like comparing a busy street to a quiet forest path.
Exactly. The city's stimulating, sure, but the forest allows for deeper thought. It challenges that assumption that more activity always means more progress. Instead, it argues for strategic pauses, pauses that foster deeper thinking, innovation, and let you return stronger.
Okay, final point on this section. Generating ideas. It's not about being perfect or, waiting for lightning to strike.
Doesn't always work that way.
Derek Sivers has a great take. People who have lots of good ideas, they also have even more bad ideas.
Huh. So the key is volume.
Kind of. The goal is to get bad ideas, because once you get enough bad ideas, then some good ones have to show up. It frees you from that pressure of perfection, that need for instant genius. Just generate.
Takes the pressure off. I like that.
And this ties into Seth Godin's advice. Take any idea, no matter how big or scary, and break it down to the very first step.
Just the first step.
He uses Richard Branson, starting Virgin Atlantic, as an example. Seemed
right.
impossible, right?
Yeah.
Magazine publisher, no money, no airline experience.
Yeah, audacious.
Branson's first step, he just called Boeing. Asked if they had a plane he could lease. That's it. The point is, no idea is so huge, you can't take one simple initial action to get it rolling.
Break it down. Start small. Makes sense.
Okay, so we've talked mindset, we've talked daily architecture. Now let's turn to the body and mind connection. Forging resilience.
Physical and mental fortitude.
Okay, and we start with some pretty provocative experiments around fasting. It's a hot topic now.
Definitely gaining traction.
The author shares his own experiences, moving from regular 3-day fasts to longer ones, 5 to 7 days, even a 10-day fast.
10 days is serious.
It is, and the results he shares are striking. After that 10-day fast, which included some specialized stuff like vitamin C IVs and hyperbaric oxygen.
Advanced protocols.
Right. He apparently lost 0 muscle mass, which is amazing because on a previous 7-day fast, he'd lost nearly 12 pounds of muscle. Shows how nuanced the approach can be.
So how you fast matters, not just that you fast.
Exactly. And beyond his personal story, the sources bring in Dr. Dom D'Agostino, a top researcher in this area.
Oh, yeah. Prominent name in keto and fasting research.
He states pretty boldly that fasting before chemotherapy is definitely something that should be implemented in our oncology wards.
That's a strong statement from a researcher. Why?
Well, Dom explains that fasting basically slows, sometimes stops, rapidly dividing cells, and it triggers this energetic crisis that makes cancer cells selectively vulnerable to chemo and radiation.
Okay, break that down. How does that work?
Think of it like this. Healthy cells are metabolically flexible. They can switch fuel sources when food is scarce. But many cancer cells are rigid, addicted to glucose.
Like sugar addicts, essentially.
Right. So fasting deprives them of their main fuel, weakening them significantly, makes them much easier targets for treatments.
Fascinating. So it makes chemo more effective.
That's the idea. And Dom even suggests this multi-pronged approach for cancer treatment or just serious metabolic optimization.
The synergistic strategy.
Yeah. A ketogenic diet is the base, plus intermittent fasting like 1 meal a day in a 4-hour window. Then maybe ketone supplements to boost ketones, the drug metformin, and maybe DCA.
Okay, that's getting complex and very specific.
It is. It highlights how these things might work together synergistically,
Wow.
the whole being greater than the sum of its parts for metabolic health.
This is definitely a profound area, and obviously these are advanced, often medical interventions.
Absolutely. Need qualified professional guidance here.
For sure. But the core principles offer insights for maybe just promoting general metabolic health and resilience in our own lives, right?
Yeah, the underlying concepts.
That idea of an energetic crisis for cancer cells, while extreme, it points to the deep impact fasting can have on basic cellular processes for everyone, teaching the body metabolic flexibility.
Learning to burn different fuels efficiently.
Right. And what's really compelling is that potential for synergy, combining different strategies, not just relying on one thing. It hints at a future where we proactively optimize our internal environment, not just reactively treat problems.
Interesting. Okay, beyond diet, the sources dive into some unusual but really effective physical practices, often borrowed from elite athletes, coaches pushing the limits.
Stuff beyond the usual gym routine.
Definitely. One standout is gymnastic strength training, or GST. The author saw unbelievable improvement in areas he'd basically given up on in less than 8 weeks using Coach Summers' methods.
8 weeks. That's fast. What's the philosophy?
Coach Summers' core philosophy is crucial and often ignored. Consistency over intensity.
Ah, that again. Consistency.
He constantly tells athletes to slow down, because if you rush, the reward is injuries. He even jokes, I used to tell my athletes there are stupid gymnasts and there are old gymnasts, but there are no old stupid gymnasts because they're all dead.
Brutal honesty. So it's patient, methodical progress.
Exactly. Building resilient, integrated strength, not ego-driven lifting that leads to burnout and injury. It's about the long game. Then there's the QL walk, also known as the butt walk.
The butt walk. Okay, you have my attention.
It's an unusual warm-up from powerlifter Donnie Thompson, first guy to deadlift over 3,000 pounds.
Whoa. Okay, so what is it?
You sit on the floor, legs out, hold a kettlebell at your chest, and literally walk your butt cheeks forward and back across the floor.
Seriously.
Seriously. It's designed to fire up your glutes and your QL, the quadratus lumborum, a deep lower back muscle vital for core stability.
Activates key stabilizers, often dormant from sitting.
Exactly. Unconventional, but apparently super effective.
I might have to try that. Maybe not in public.
Probably wise. Then there are dips with RTO ring turnout. Dips on gymnastic rings.
Rings are tough. What's RTO?
It involves specific wrist rotation at the top of the dip, requires deep core engagement, works muscles you didn't know you had, great for shoulder stability and upper body control.
Sounds challenging.
Very. Another key practice, decompressing the spine. Jerzy Gregorek, a world record-holding Olympic weightlifter, still incredibly strong in his 60s.
That's impressive longevity.
He considers hanging upside down mandatory after any load-bearing training. For spinal health, given his results, maybe something to consider.
Spinal decompression makes sense after lifting heavy.
The author also loves kettlebell. Windmills calls them incredible for hip rehab and prehab. Improves hip mobility and core strength together.
Windmills are great for that rotational strength, too.
And for more advanced stuff, there's acro yoga. Techniques like leaf hugger and gravity boots, they combine strength, flexibility, partner work, kind of like a human massage and stretch session. Helps decompress and restore the body.
These practices all seem to emphasize that foundational strength and mobility, right? Not just isolated muscles or trendy workouts.
Exactly. Integrated function.
And that consistency over intensity theme is such a powerful antidote to the usual go hard or go home fitness mentality that just leads to injuries and quitting.
So true.
These varied approaches really encourage you to think differently about physical adaptation, long-term health, suggesting that true strength and resilience come from a holistic, patient, sometimes weird approach that respects the body's need for integration and recovery, not just force.
Well said. And we can't forget the power of cold exposure.
Ah, the ice baths. Wing Hof, Laird Hamilton.
Tony Robbins, too. They all use it for physical and mental optimization. The benefits reported are pretty wide-ranging.
Like what?
Improving immune function, potentially increasing fat loss, partly by boosting a hormone called adiponectin.
Which helps regulate metabolism.
Right. And a big one, dramatically elevating mood. That surge of feel-good neurotransmitters after the cold shock.
Instant mood boost.
Apparently. And fascinating historical note, even Van Gogh was prescribed cold baths twice a day in a psychiatric ward after.
Well, wow. So it's not entirely new.
Shows a long-standing, if unconventional, recognition of its potential mental health benefits. That shock can reset your nervous system, improve stress resilience.
Makes you tougher.
Okay, finally in this section, optimizing your environment for rest. Sleep hygiene.
Crucial. Often overlooked.
Kelly Starrett, the physical therapist, gives blunt advice. Dark means dark.
How dark.
He points to studies where even shining a tiny laser on the back of someone's knee gets picked up by the body, disrupting sleep hormones.
Seriously. On the knee.
Yeah. His message is clear. You cannot have your phone in your room. You cannot have a TV in your room. It needs to be black as night. Any light interferes with melatonin.
Pitch black. Got it.
What about bedding?
His advice here is also really interesting, maybe counterintuitive. Soft is the solution.
Soft. Not firm. I thought firm was better for your back.
That's the common wisdom, but he argues today's modern human needs to sleep on a soft mattress. Ideally, you would be sleeping in a hammock.
A hammock. Why soft?
Because modern life, all the sitting, creates extension-sensitive issues in our spine and hips. A hard bed can actually make those worse. A soft surface allows for better decompression, more natural spinal alignment, leads to deeper, more restorative sleep.
Challenges conventional wisdom again.
Definitely.
It's really fascinating how all these different pieces, ancient practices like cold exposure, modern sleep science, they all kind of converge on this theme of resilience,
Right.
building robustness.
Yeah, it's a holistic picture.
Yeah. It highlights that peak performance isn't just about pushing harder. It's equally about creating the environment and the practices that support deep recovery and adaptation.
Managing your internal and external landscape proactively.
Exactly. Building that robust foundation, not just reacting to stress. The body's ability to heal and adapt is amazing, but it needs the right inputs, the right environment. These titans seem to get that on a deep level.
Okay, great points. Let's pivot now. Career and business strategies.
All right, the game of life and work.
Let's start with a really impactful concept from Kevin Kelly, one of the founders of Wired magazine. It's called 1,000 True Fans.
1,000 true fans. Heard of it. Powerful idea.
It totally challenges that old notion that you need millions of customers or a massive hit to make a living as a creator.
Right, you don't need to be a superstar.
Kelly's idea is simple but profound. To make a living as a craftsperson, photographer, musician, writer, whatever, you only need 1,000 true fans.
Define true fan.
These are the fans who will buy anything you produce. Your latest album, your art, your book, your service. They're so invested they become your strongest marketing force. They tell everyone about you.
Your evangelists.
Exactly. And the relevance for the internet age is huge. Before the web, if you were the only person in town into, death metal or artisanal spoons.
You were kind of isolated.
Right. But now, Kelly says, satisfaction is only one click away. With billions online, even for a 1 in a million appeal, any niche, no matter how weird,
Can find its global audience.
Exactly. You can find those 1,000 true fans somewhere. You don't need mass appeal. You need deep connection with a dedicated community.
It really democratizes creation and entrepreneurship, doesn't it?
Yes.
It shifts the focus from chasing massive numbers to cultivating intense loyalty within a smaller, dedicated group.
Depth over breadth.
Precisely. It makes you ask, how can you identify and cultivate your own true fans? By focusing on real connection, authentic engagement, consistently delivering value, instead of trying to please everyone.
A path to a sustainable, maybe more fulfilling creative career.
Absolutely. One that doesn't rely on that constant, stressful need to scale endlessly.
Okay. Related to finding your niche, there's the crucial first what concept.
First what?
Yeah, it flips traditional business thinking. When launching something new, the first question shouldn't be, how is this better than what's out there?
Which is what most people ask.
Right. Instead, ask, what category is this new product first in? It's based on the law of category.
Law of category.
The idea is people are defensive about brands claiming to be better. Everyone says they're better, but people are naturally interested in what's new.
Novelty versus improvement.
Exactly. Example. Charles Schwab didn't open a better brokerage. He opened the first discount broker. DEC didn't promote a better mini-computer. They promoted the mini-computer as a totally new category. They defined the space.
Creating a new category where you're the leader by default.
Precisely. The author of Tools of Titans did this himself by coining lifestyle design for the 4-hour workweek. Created a new category, owned it.
That's fascinating. It completely reorients your strategy. Instead of fighting in a crowded, better market, you define a new space where you have no direct competition initially. You create the playing field.
Makes you think differently about positioning.
Totally. It encourages critical thinking about market analysis. How do you position yourself or your product as unique, truly different, not just slightly better? It's about carving out your own identity by defining the terms of success in your space.
Okay, so for those daring enough to actually start something new or take an unconventional path, the advice from these titans is clear and really liberating.
What is it?
Don't be afraid to do something you're not qualified to do.
Ooh, I like that. Permission to ignore qualifications.
Kind of. Look at Dan Carlin, Hardcore History podcast. Hugely popular.
Incredible show.
He famously disarms criticism in almost every episode by saying, keep in mind that I'm no historian, but yet his show is revered for its depth. Passion and thoroughness trumped formal credentials.
For as it can be done.
And Naval Ravikant, the Oracle of Silicon Valley, put it even more bluntly. If I had always done what I was qualified to do, I'd be pushing a broom somewhere.
Love that.
There's even that old saying cited, amateurs built the Ark, professionals built the Titanic. It's a powerful pushback against limiting yourself based on what paper says you can do. Your lack of a degree might actually be a strength, frees you from conventional thinking.
It really makes you question, how much does that perceived lack of qualification hold us back? Prevent us from even starting? The idea that real innovation often comes from outsiders. That's powerful.
The beginner's mind.
Exactly. Challenges that conventional wisdom that expertise is always the prerequisite. Sometimes not knowing the rules allows you to find better solutions. It's like a permission slip to just dive in, learn as you go, and trust that curiosity and dedication can be more valuable than a traditional resume.
Okay, so once you're in motion, in business or life, the mantra, discipline equals freedom from Jocko Willink is huge.
Jocko. Discipline equals freedom. Sounds like a paradox.
It does on the surface, right? How can discipline, rules, constraints lead to freedom?
Yeah. Seems counterintuitive.
But the interpretation is that positive constraints can actually increase perceived free will and results.
How so?
Think about it. A totally free-form day might seem great, but it often leads to decision fatigue, the paradox of choice. You end up doing nothing because you're overwhelmed.
Been there.
In contrast, something simple like pre-scheduling your workouts, that acts as scaffolding for the day. You plan around it. It gives you a greater sense of agency and feeling of freedom because you've already made that choice, freeing up mental energy.
Structure creates freedom.
Exactly. And Jocko extends this. Financial freedom, freedom of time, even freedom from sickness. These are only achieved through discipline. Without the discipline to save or exercise or manage your time, you lose the very freedom those things provide.
The discipline creates the conditions for freedom later.
Right, and this ties into his concept of extreme ownership.
Extreme ownership. Taking responsibility.
Totally. He tells a story about being a SEAL commander. Other commanders would always ask for more resources. But Jocko took extreme ownership. He'd find solutions internally first.
Solve your own problems before asking for help.
Yeah. When asked what he needed instead of new gear, his answer was, we've got it covered. That mindset, proactive problem solving, internal accountability, not blaming circumstances, is key to earning that freedom and showing real leadership.
That paradox of discipline leading to freedom is really profound. It flips the script on discipline being restrictive. Instead, it's the pathway to agency, to more possibilities.
Builds the structure so you can move freely.
Exactly. And extreme ownership emphasizes that accountability, that proactive problem solving. Critical for growth, personally and professionally. Looking inward for solutions empowers you to shape things, not just be a victim of circumstance. You always have a choice in how you respond.
Great point. Okay, another powerful strategy for career advancement, especially when starting out or wanting to make an impact, it's called the canvas strategy.
The canvas strategy? What's
that? It's explicitly not about kissing ass or just sucking up. It's about proactively providing the support so that others can be good.
Helping others succeed.
Yeah, the core idea is find canvases for other people to paint on.
Be the support structure.
Right. Take initiative in often unglamorous but vital ways. Like, come up with ideas and hand them to your boss, not for credit, but to help them shine. Introduce thinkers to each other. Connect people who could collaborate.
Facilitate success for others.
Find the tasks nobody else wants to do the messy stuff and just crush it. Identify inefficiencies, fix them, produce more than expected and generously share your ideas. Basically, find ways to boost others' creativity, help them collaborate, remove distractions, make yourself indispensable by making them better.
That subtly but profoundly reframes career advancement, doesn't it? Moves it from a competitive zero-sum game to a collaborative value creation one.
Yeah, win-win.
It suggests that by investing in others' success, by proactively solving those unspoken problems, you build deep relationships. You develop your own skills in a way that's both rewarding and infinitely scalable.
You're not waiting to be noticed. You're actively creating value.
Exactly, which inevitably elevates your own standing. It's moving beyond just transactional networking to building real symbiotic connections. That naturally leads to your own growth because you've become a force multiplier for everyone around you.
Very powerful shift. Now, a crucial element for leadership, for growth, radical self-awareness, especially about your weaknesses or how others see you.
Knowing your blind spots.
Yeah.
Tough, but necessary.
General Stan McChrystal, who vets people for his elite group, has this fascinating technique. In an interview, he might say, okay, everyone says Chris is great, but, and then just silence.
Oof. Awkward silence. Why?
It forces the candidate to articulate the external perception of themselves, even the negative stuff. What's the but? It reveals courage and self-awareness. Are you willing to confront and voice your perceived flaws, even if they're just perceptions?
Can you handle the unvarnished truth about yourself?
Right. McChrystal says even if it's common knowledge, the courage to face it, to say it to someone considering hiring you, is a huge window into personality. Shows integrity. Confronting blind spots is critical for growth and trust.
That's a real test of character.
And this is reinforced by advice from Chris Fusel, former SEAL partner at McChrystal Group. He suggests keeping a running list of 3 people to watch constantly.
3 people who?
Someone senior you want to emulate. A peer who's currently better at the job than you are pushes you to raise your game. And a subordinate who's doing your old job better than you did it.
Wow, that last one fosters humility.
Totally. It creates this continuous, humbling feedback loop. Fosters perpetual self-improvement, ensures you never get complacent.
It's powerful how vulnerability and self-assessment become these robust tools for growth and leadership, not weaknesses. McChrystal's technique directly challenges the ego, right? Forces that honest appraisal.
See if you're self-aware or just presenting an image.
Exactly. And Fussel's 3-person list is brilliant. A continuous feedback mechanism fostering humility, commitment to always getting better. It externalizes self-assessment, makes introspection dynamic and actionable, encourages you to think about how you seek and use feedback, shifting from defense to a proactive growth strategy.
Well put. And finally, just a great reminder from Justin Beretta of the Glitch Mob, something that should be like on every college campus wall.
What is it?
It's not about ideas, it's about making ideas happen.
Execution over ideation.
Exactly. He says young creative minds don't need more ideas. They need to take more responsibility with the ideas they already have. The world's full of concepts. Real impact comes from relentless execution. Doing, shipping, bringing something into existence, that's what matters.
Amen to that.
Okay, let's wrap up our deep dive with some broader wisdom. Stuff for living a richer, more intentional life, drawing from these masters.
The art of living. Okay.
We start with the counterintuitive power of just saying, I don't understand.
Admitting ignorance as a strength.
Kind of. Louis Fanon, creator of CapTCHA and Duolingo, talks about his PhD advisor, Manuel Bloom, the father of cryptography. Bloom would constantly say, I don't understand, even at the first sentence of an explanation.
Even on simple stuff. Why? Was he just slow?
No, not at all. It wasn't because he was confused. It forced Louis to think deeply about things, made Louis realize he didn't fully understand what he was trying to explain.
It forced clarity and rigor on the explainer.
Exactly. This seemingly frustrating thing was a profound lesson in clarity, intellectual rigor, and the importance of really dissecting concepts, not just accepting surface explanations.
It's fascinating how that same ignorance can be such a powerful teaching tool, pushing both the explainer and the listener deeper. It's not about being confused, but demanding absolute clarity, questioning every assumption.
Pushing for real comprehension.
Right. It makes you wonder, how often do we just nod along, settling for surface understanding because we're afraid to admit, I don't understand? And we miss chances for real insight, for truly mastering something. It's a call for intellectual humility, relentless questioning.
Yeah, recognizing understanding often lies beyond that first grasp, which leads perfectly into Josh Waitzkin's principle, learning the macro from the micro.
Waitzkin, the chess prodigy,
Yeah.
martial artist. Okay, macro from micro.
He advocates focusing on something really small and specific within a field. Like in chess, he started with complex endgames, not just memorizing openings.
Why end games? Seems backwards.
His approach is to internalize extremely powerful macro principles that apply everywhere, memorizing openings. He calls that stealing the test answers. It doesn't teach strategy or adaptation.
Just rote learning.
Right. Starting with the endgame forces you to grasp universal principles, the power of empty space, opposition, setting up zugzwang, concepts that go way beyond chess, apply to negotiation, business, relationships. It's about understanding the underlying physics of the domain.
That's a powerful case for depth over breadth in learning. Foundational understanding. True mastery comes from deeply getting those core principles, not just collecting surface facts or techniques.
Allows for flexible application.
Exactly. It encourages you to think about how you structure your own learning. Prioritize fundamental understanding, pattern recognition. When you get the principles, you can apply them creatively anywhere, like knowing physics versus just memorizing engineering formulas. Allows real innovation.
Okay, great point. Now, for everyone who feels they don't have time to read,
Which is probably most of us.
General Stan McChrystal offers a brilliant practical solution: audiobooks.
Listening instead of reading.
He consumes 70% of his books via audio, a habit from military deployments. He seamlessly integrates listening into his day.
Oh.
I learned to run with audiobooks. My mind will stay collected on it when I lift weights. He even has speakers in his bathroom. Listens while brushing teeth, shaving, getting dressed.
Using those small pockets of time.
Exactly. Allows him to get through books very, very quickly. If you work out an hour and a half a day, that's a lot of listening time compared to dedicated reading slots.
Maximizing efficiency.
He also does binge reading on topics via audio. Reads 7 or 8 books on George Washington, say. Gains comprehensive, overlapping knowledge. Fills in the holes. Builds deep understanding.
It really makes you consider, are we truly using all those available moments to learn? McChrystal shows learning isn't just dedicated reading time. It can fit into almost any routine, turning dead time into productive intellectual time.
Finding time, not making time.
Right. It's about optimizing the time you already have.
Yeah.
And the sheer volume of knowledge you can accumulate that way. It's compelling.
Yeah.
Maximizing your intellectual uptime.
Okay, a crucial lesson now for living a full life. From Dan Carlin's commencement speech again.
What did he say?
The hardest thing you're ever going to do in your life is fail at something, and if you don't start failing at things, you will not live a full life.
Wow. Embrace failure to live fully.
It directly challenges how most of us are programmed always succeed, avoid mistakes at all costs. His message is a powerful call to embrace failure, not just as possible, but as necessary for growth.
You need to fail to grow.
You have to be prepared to fail. That's how you're going to expand yourself and grow. It's about stepping onto that uncertain path, risking vulnerability, accepting that real expansion often comes with missteps, with setbacks. Without the courage to fail, you never really push your boundaries.
You stay in the safe zone.
Exactly. And speaking of living fully, Cal Fussman, the amazing interviewer, offers poignant advice he'd give his 30-year-old self.
What's Cal's advice?
Appreciate what's good about this moment. Don't always think that you're on a permanent journey. Stop and enjoy the view.
Presence over constant striving.
He contrasts it with typical youthful ambition, where appreciating the moment feels like weakening resolve, like pausing means losing drive. He says that's just not true. Recognizing the good now doesn't kill ambition. It enriches the journey.
Finding joy along the way.
And he emphasizes life's fragility. Fortune can do anything with us. We are very fragile creatures. You only have to push us a little bit and we crack very easily. So it's vital to appreciate every day that goes by without a major disaster. Find contentment in the simple, overlooked joys because tomorrow isn't guaranteed.
That encourages some critical thinking about our relentless chase for more, doesn't it? That balance between ambition and presence. The wisdom that true fulfillment isn't just in hitting future goals, but in finding contentment now, recognizing how fragile and precious each day is.
Yeah, challenges the idea that constant striving is the only path.
Right. It's about ensuring that while you're chasing the destination, you don't completely miss the beauty and value of the journey itself.
Well said. And finally, one last provocative quote from Derek Sivers, a repeated learning he's had that he finds liberating.
Okay, get me with it.
There are no adults. Everyone's making it up as they go along. Figure it out yourself and do it.
No adults. Everyone's figuring it out.
It's incredibly empowering, isn't it? Reminds us there's no secret playbook, no ultimate authority with all the answers, no single right way to live or succeed.
The path is yours to make.
Exactly. Forge it yourself, armed with these tools and insights. So wow, from shedding constraints and fear setting to the power of I don't understand and 1,000 true fans. We've covered a massive toolkit today from Tools of Titans. It's a reminder that extraordinary lives are often built on surprising yet consistent principles. What really stands out to you from all this?
You know, what's most impactful for me is that these insights feel less about specific things to do and more about how to be to unlock your potential.
A way of being.
Yeah. True mastery, real freedom, they don't seem to come from rigid formulas or one single path. It's more this dynamic interplay of mindset shifts, intentional habits, physical resilience, and just a willingness to constantly question, learn, adapt.
Cultivating a mindset that sees challenges as opportunities.
Exactly. Opportunities for innovation and growth.
Indeed. So, as you go about your day, here's something to think about. If everything you think you know, everything you've been told about what's possible for you, if that was all just a suggestion, what would you choose to redefine first in your own life?
Ooh, good question. And building on that, how would your life truly change if you deeply embrace the idea that everything is made, not born? That you are plastic in the positive sense, flexible and able to grow and reshape yourself. What would you reshape?
Those are definitely deep dives for another time. Until then, keep digging, keep learning, and keep applying those powerful nuggets of knowledge.